What's up, everyone? Welcome to Among the Fence. My name is Aaron. Today we're checking out the new album Necromanteum by the deathcore band Carnifex, which is their ninth studio album. And believe it or not, Carnifex has been around since 2005, predating that Art and Murder and Whitechapel, which I feel like is pretty interesting because they're never mentioned with them. But I feel like Carnifex has a pretty solid discography of deathcore music. I enjoy most of it, with their 2014 release, Die Without Hope, being my favorite, and their follow-up album Slow Death is a phenomenal album, but it's also their last one to really get a lot of praise. Their previous album before this one, Graveside Confessions, it was all right. For some reason, it just didn't really hit that hard. A couple songs on there are great, but overall, I felt like the whole album just wasn't, I don't know, it just didn't have that special flair that the previous albums did. However, the singles for Necromanteum seem to be going in a different direction, seem to be going back to their older sound while also still having some newer qualities that we haven't really heard before. So it made me really curious, and I just wanted to see what else was hidden on this album. The opening track, Torn in Two, gets things going with blast beats, and I really dig the synth and just the overall groovy riff within this one. The guttural growls were just okay, but the snarl vocals were absolutely sick, and I love that the synth is doing so much in this song. And I don't mean like it's overworking or it's, trying really hard. A lot of times within music like this, deathcore, and they add synth to it, such as like More to Shore, the synth just kind of does the same thing. Not even throughout the album, but throughout the entire song. It doesn't really do a whole lot. Just plays a couple chords, adding a little bit of harmonies in the background. But the strings are they're doing a lot. They're kind of holding their own within this song. And surprisingly, I enjoyed the guitar solo in this. And also the meaning of this song, which I feel like is all paths lead to hell, or death, I guess, at the end of the day. And then we also have the song Death's Forgotten Child, which has a really old school feel to it, complete with squeals and snarls. Again, the synth does a lot within the song, and the drums are basically like the driving force. Tom Barber adds a lot to the song as well with his really low growls, and I just like the overall flow of this track. Like, the blast beats are like the grounding force within this song. So you have the kind of chaotic sounding verses that are a little bit all over the place in terms of vocals and just riffs and stuff. And then you can kind of feel that groove, that rhythm kind of picking back up. And then all of a sudden the triplets come in, and it's just so good. My favorite song on this album is Crowned in Everblack, which is a nod and about Trevor Strnad from the Black Dahlia murder. It has a lot of narrative to it, as it's telling a tale of a leader of a dark army who's crowned in Everblack. It has a lot of transitions, some of which are pretty epic, while others are really more heavy and chaotic. And the outro is one of the best moments on this album. There's just so much going on with the synth and the guitar solo that's slowly building behind the vocals. And then it finishes off with piano and then like another kind of breakdown. This is just beautifully well written. They really took their time with this one. I also enjoyed the song How the Knife Gets Twisted. It has a really dynamic riff, and the verse kind of has like a groove metal feel to it, as does this whole song. And because of that, it feels like it just keeps coming. It feels like it's just constantly moving and building within itself, with the synth going into like a really cool climax of the song. And I didn't really care too much for it on the first listen, but to me, this one felt like the high point of the record. Like, this felt like what the whole record was building up to. The title track has a little bit of a theatrical feel, and dare I say, a little Shadow of Intent-ish. It has a lot of bass drops within this, which, I mean, every song does, but for some reason it really stuck out to me. The vocal layering in it is fantastic, and the riff in verse 2 is just absolutely nasty. The lyrics are really good, as it's telling the story of, I think, someone with depression. At least that's kind of what I picked up from the metaphors within this and the storytelling in it. The Pathless Forest has a really cool intro that sounds basically like gunfire. The chorus has this brilliant, like, mid-tempo vocal cadence. It sounds really sick over the blast beats. And as far as songwriting goes, this one is like the most traditional and straightforward, but it's still great, especially with that breakdown at the end. It's so heavy. Architect of Misanthropy is super stomping. The vocals play off the rhythm in this beautifully. I really enjoyed the lyrics that are based around basically just helplessness, and it's just so stinking heavy. I felt like this is one of the heaviest tracks on the album in a traditional deathcore kind of way. And I feel like the trem picking and the triplets and just the overall sound of this thing really helped out, especially in the back half of this album where I felt like it was going to start slowing down. And this track definitely shows that it's not going to. Then we have Infinite Night Terror. It's full of blast beats and almost like animalistic vocals. Verse 2 gets really dynamic, especially within the riff, but it quickly goes back to the fast drum work and synth. There's a lot of different sections of this song separated by bass drops and different vocal variations and just different sounds. But overall, I felt like, again, the bass drops in this stood out so much. And there's just so many bass drops throughout this album. But I don't know. The more I listen to it, I didn't really find myself becoming too tired of it. Like it didn't feel overused or anything like that. But I could see how it could start to become a little tiring and honestly kind of predictable. Bleed More has one of my favorite riffs in the intro that I really wish would have kept going. This is one of the more haunting and technical songs thanks to the guitar and the synth complementing each other. This is another high point to this album. It felt like another peak, especially within the storytelling, and the breakdown just makes you want to throw something against the wall. And then we have the closing track, Heaven and Hell All at Once. This was another one of my favorites, as it's one of the more unique songs on this album, starting off with kind of almost like a breakdown and a guitar solo. It does a really good job at summing everything up as far as the struggles of mental health, and it ends rather aggressively. This whole song just feels like it feels like they're all playing at their top level. This song felt like the best in terms of songwriting. It was just a great closing track. It didn't slow down at all. Once you get to it, you're not just left hearing what you've heard throughout the rest of the album. It definitely brings something new to it to really keep your interest to finish this thing off. This album is so sick. Some of the songs honestly can kind of sound the same due to just the overall tone of the guitars and drums and just the overall sound of this thing, specifically with the bass drops thrown in there as well. But there's a lot of differences within these songs that help give them their own identity, like the synth that's used so strategically. It's not like they just took a bar of synth and just copy and pasted it through this entire album. It's always doing something different that I enjoyed so much. The riffs are really nasty and the drum work is intoxicating. The different vocal varieties do a really good job at telling the story, and the music does a good job at setting the atmosphere by using violins and piano and Tom Barber. I mean, there's just a lot within this album. The different influences that they used. I mean, there's even some black metal thrown in there that sounds fantastic. And even and especially the Black Dahlia vibes in Crowned and Everblack, which is just an absolute fantastic salute to Trevor Strnad. It blew me away. It's outstanding. So with all that said, I got to give Necromanteum by Carnifex a 8.3 out of 10. But I want to know what you guys think. This might be, to me, one of the best deathcore albums of the year. I don't know, Signs of Swarm is still really high up there for me, but I just enjoyed this song. It's definitely probably one of my favorite Carnifex albums now. But like I said, I don't know what other fans think. Leave a comment below letting me know what you thought of Necromanteum. Let me know what you would rate it and what your favorite song is. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like. Doing something as simple like that helps me out so much with YouTube's algorithm. It keeps me in your recommended section by showing YouTube that you enjoyed my video enough to interact with it. And if you want to help support me and my channel, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell icon. Doing any of that stuff just helps me out tremendously. And I appreciate it, and you, more than you could ever imagine. And I hope you have a good rest of your day or night, whenever you happen to be watching this. And I will talk to you guys next time.